Okay, so the last tool for the day. Last teaching for the day. Anyone here have a family member or a grandpa who's like a carpenter? Okay, so my grandpa, Elmer was his name, Elmer Rupert. He was a carpenter his whole life. He built houses, he built decks, and he had one of those like white vans, right? Like the kind you see driving by and you kind of like grab your kid. So, and it's like no windows, and in Minnesota, it's like the whole bottom is rusted. Like the whole wheel well just rusty, white rusty van. And then he had every tool at Home Depot in the back of the van, and it was so heavy that it was like always, the back end was down. Can you picture this thing? 300,000 miles on it or whatever. And so he had, a carpenter had every tool in that thing. But every carpenter has a tool belt. And in that tool belt are like the tools that are right there all the time. Like hammer, tape measure, the orange pencil that you sharpen with a knife just because it makes you feel cool. Right? They're the main tools. And you think of leaders, how we all have vans and bookshelves, in podcasts and inboxes that are like every tool in Home Depot when it comes to leadership, don't we? I mean, I love all the leadership things, but it's like, man, we only need really a few tools, and if we have these few tools that we're doing all the time, we will become better leaders when it comes to developing our people and our team. So these are 5 tools. 5 tools every leader needs to have in their toolbox. The first one, teach. Great leaders are always teaching. Specifically, they're always teaching culture. Right? Dale shared for years and years and years, always teaching. Here's our mission. Here's our to the point where it's like people start to almost make fun of you because you're reinforcing, you're the CRO, your chief reminding officer. Teaching all the time. You're out for dinner, or you're having lunch or coffee. There's something with leaders who they're writing on napkins. It's like they're using the salt shaker and the pepper shaker as like examples. I remember I was having lunch with a leader at a Mexican restaurant, and it's endless chips and there's a salsa. And I chuckled because, I teach this, and pretty soon he's got the salsa thing. And he was like, this is like all of us, the whole circle, it's like all of us. And it's like every leader we all only show this much of us, and it's like as people try to come around and see the backside, it's like we reposition, he's doing this with the salsa, and I'm just laughing. But it's like that's what you're constantly reminding people what you're doing and why you're doing it and what's so important, because everybody drifts. Vision drifts, mission drifts, purpose drifts. You guys can create a vision culture, and you can have a big launch meeting and tell it to everybody, but if you don't constantly remind them every single week and every month, they're going to forget. So it's like, are you teaching what's really, 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 really important? Encourage. Leaders are always looking for opportunities to intentionally encourage the people on their team. And here's a few things I've learned. Number 1, if you're a leader, you need to be intentional to know, how do the people on my team receive encouragement? Some people love it when you publicly encourage them in a meeting. Hey, I just want to take a few minutes in front of the whole team, and I want to call out, Stan. Stan's the man. And here's positive, specific, and here's why. Right? Some people would be like, I felt so encouraged when you did that. Other people, their face would get red. They want to curl up in a ball and hide under the table because they're embarrassed because you're encouraging them in front. Is anyone like that in here? Like, if you get Thank you. You're so good at raising your hand. Just kidding. So you don't want to. It's like you have to know. Some people writing a handwritten note of encouragement that they get into their office, whatever, and you're mailed to their house, and they open up and they read it, right? They have a little jar that they put it in. They never throw that thing away. And when they're 80, they're going to put that thing in their casket with them. Other people, they'll read a handwritten note and go, rip it up and throw it in the garbage. It doesn't mean as much as like verbal. So it's like, how do your people receive encouragement? What's their love language? And how do you encourage them like that? I'll tell you a quick story. So we have we don't do this anymore, but for years at Eagle Brook, when we were a smaller staff, when somebody was leaving staff, we would have a cake party. So it'd be like, hey, everyone go to the Falcon room or the Eagle room, and we're going to have this cake party because so-and-so is leaving. And then you kind of knew there was this like unspoken code when you heard someone was leaving. Pretty soon you'd be like, cake or no cake? If it was no cake, you don't ask any questions. So I was like, no cake, okay. Don't ask any questions. But cake or no cake? It's, all right. So I specifically remember there was a cake party. Okay, so this was a good thing. There was a pastor, his name was Aaron, great name, by the way. He was on staff, I don't know, like 10 years or something. And then when at this cake party, everyone would get in a big awkward circle, and then everyone, who wants to say nice things? And it was almost like it was like a living eulogy, where everyone would go around and just be like, just encourage the heck out of these people. And in this specific cake party, then it gets to the turn where the person leaving says something like, thank you so much, here's what I'm going to do. And this specific time, I don't remember the exact quote he said. I should write it down. But he was like, hey, thanks, that means a lot that you said that. He goes, here's my challenge for you, for this staff. He was like, I was on staff for like 10 years, and it was great, right? I don't have any, loved it, so grateful. But he said, I have never felt so loved, so encouraged, and so appreciated while I was here. But it was when I told all of you that I was leaving, did all of you finally tell me how much I meant? It's like, you got to do better. If I would have known how much I really mean to all of you, I probably won't be leaving. Why do we do that? We take encouragement for granted. We take people for, so let's build culture where we're constantly encouraging people and letting them know, here is how much you mean to us, to me, to this organization. Don't wait until they turn in their, what is it called, the little I'm leaving paper? What is it called? Yeah, resignation letter. Don't wait for that. Always be encouraging people. Okay, wisdom. Wisdom is perspective. Now, here's the thing I want to say about wisdom. Every single person in this room, whether you're 65 and have led a massive church for 30 years, or whether you're 25 and you just started in ministry 30 weeks ago, everybody has wisdom. Because wisdom is perspective, wisdom is life experience, wisdom is your time with God. And the healthiest cultures realize everyone in the room has wisdom, and that wisdom is valuable, and the young need to learn from the old, and the old need to learn from the young, and the young need to realize I have wisdom to offer and share about our culture and about the next generation, and the old have to also say I have a lot to share through years of success and failure. So this what leaders realize is wisdom is a gift. I have it, they have it, and how do we collectively pull the wisdom from the whole group, from men, from women, from young and old, so that we can serve our church the best way that we can. Wisdom is just not an age thing. Everybody has wisdom. So have confidence in the wisdom you have to share. And the best way to solicit wisdom is to ask questions. I had a staff member who was very, very gifted. He was so smart, often the smartest person in the room. And he was very wise in that in a meeting, he would stay silent the whole time. And the people were like, well, what do you think? And then he would share what he thinks. And he was so eloquent and so wise that it was like, oh, why didn't you just say that right away? We would have just done that. We just wasted an hour. And I just noticed over time, it's like he was incredibly gifted, right? And it wasn't doing anything wrong. But then he went from just being an individual contributor on the team to having an opportunity to lead a team. And my biggest piece of advice for him was, I was like, hey man, you are almost always the smartest person in the room, the most wise person in the room, and you're very, very eloquent at explaining your thoughts and ideas. But if you want to be a great leader of a team, you need to realize that superpower, and then your goal needs to be, how do I make everyone else in the team feel like they're the wisest person in the room? And the way you can do that is just ask questions, and when they say, well, what do you think? A lot of times you actually shouldn't share what you think. And you should give the people on your team wins. Because if you lead the way that you can or should, what's going to happen is your whole team is going to stop thinking, they're going to stop sharing their thoughts, and they're just going to look to you for the answer because most of the time you have it. Does that make sense? But that's if you want to be a leader, right? That was his opportunity for growth. But wisdom is something we all have. Truth. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because we've talked about this in crucial conversations and the feedback grid. Good leaders love the truth. They love telling the truth, or that they might not love doing it, but they love that they know they should do it. And they love receiving the truth, and they crave feedback, good or bad, because they realize it helps us all get better. And the higher you go in leadership, the harder it is for people to tell you the truth. And you need to understand that. So often, you may be peers with someone, and now you're a leader. That person is not going to be able to tell you the truth the same way they did before. It's just a fact. And you need to be aware of that and not just assume, yeah, if there was something wrong, I would know. I got an open door policy. People tell me the truth. It's hard for people to tell the truth to the senior pastor, isn't it? It just is. And if they do, it's always a little sugar-coated. Why? Because you write their paycheck. So how do you have a system in place to find the truth and really seek it out? And part of it is, we've had some leaders where it's like, over time, there was this culture where I can't tell them the truth because when I tell them the truth, they don't really want to hear it, or they get defensive and they dismiss it. And if you're a leader that always tries to explain away or be like, yeah, but or minimize that's not that big of a deal. Well, they just need to buck it up and figure it out. Pretty soon, you're not creating a safe place for people to actually tell you the truth when they have the courage to. So you got to love the truth. Tell it, receive it. It's so important. And lastly, accountability. When I first became a Christian, accountability was always like, who's your accountability partner? Do you look at someone lustfully? You better call your accountability partner. That's not what we mean by that's fine and great and important. But what does accountability really mean? And again, I don't know if I'm right. Maybe you have a better definition, but here's how we think of it. Here's how I think of it. Accountability isn't, here's your expectation, here's your job. Now I'm going to catch you doing things wrong and tell you that you're not doing things right. That's not accountability. Accountability is, hey team, here's my role, here's your role, here's your role, here's the collective goal we're all going towards. We are doing this together, and then I'm constantly saying, hey, how's it going? What do you need? How can I help you? How can we help you? Is it going well? Okay, you don't, all right, our goal is to have enough volunteers in all the different areas. Let's not be siloed. How are you doing to kids? How are you doing to students? Okay, you need like 10 more volunteers for this weekend. How can we help you do that? Right? It's almost this shared thing. Accountability isn't necessarily, I think there's a difference between delegating and dumping. Right, as a leader, it's like you delegate responsibility. It's like dumping is, all right, you do it, I believe in you, dump it on them, and you never even look to see how they're doing. Accountability is, here, you're in charge of this, and now I'm checking in together. Does that make sense? And people want flexibility, they want freedom, they want clarity. They also do crave accountability. People great leaders crave accountability because they want to know my boss, my leader, my team cares about what I'm doing enough to ask about it, enough to be interested in it. But they don't want to be micromanaged, but they want to be held accountable. And the best sports teams have high accountability. When you think of like, if you're going to win the Super Bowl, right, everyone on the team is accountable for their things and they work together as a team. And the language they use is we, not you. How are your volunteers doing in kids? How are your volunteers doing in students? That's terrible. Well, my volunteers don't use that language. How are our volunteers and kids? Right? It says we, our language. That's a culture of accountability. We're in this together. We win together. We lose together. We succeed and we fail together. Okay, those are the 5 tools. And that, my friends, is the content for the day. I hope it's been a good day.